All right, let's talk about one of the most frustrating things in business. You've done it all, right? The customer is totally sold on your product. They are right there at the finish line. And then, poof, they're gone. What is that invisible wall they just hit? Well, we're going to dig into that, pulling from the work of marketing professor Alexander Chernov. He argues that the answer is usually a hidden psychological barrier, and that is exactly what we're going to break down right now.
I mean, really think about it for a second. The customer has a need. You've convinced them your product is the solution. They've mentally made the choice. So logically, the very next step should be to buy. So why do they stop? Why do so many potential sales just freeze right at that moment of truth? It's a huge pain point for literally any business.
And here is the big twist. The solution usually isn't about adding one more cool feature or, dropping the price another 5%. The barrier, it isn't always logical. It's emotional. There's this powerful, unseen force that can completely override all the practical, logical reasons to make a purchase.
Now, this thing actually has a name. Researchers call it the choice purchase gap. And it's that critical nail-biting space between a customer deciding they want your product and them actually committing to the purchase. Our job today is to really get inside that gap and see what's going on.
Look, of course there are some logical or cognitive barriers. A customer might worry, will it really work as advertised? Or did I really pick the best one? But, and this is the important part, what's really fascinating is how these emotional barriers can either pour gasoline on those logical doubts or just stop a sale dead in its tracks all by themselves. We're talking about gut feelings, a fear of what might happen later. So it's time we put a name to this powerful, unseen force. Let's meet the main culprit behind all that last-minute hesitation. It's a little something called anticipated regret. And here's what's so critical to understand about this. It's not about what they've already done, it's about what they're about to do. Anticipated regret is your customer basically playing a little movie in their head, a movie where they buy your product, and it all goes terribly wrong. They are literally feeling the pain of future regret before they've even clicked the buy button. And you gotta see, this is completely different from what we normally call buyer's remorse. Buyer's remorse looks backward. It's that, oh man, what have I done feeling after you've already paid. Anticipated regret is the total opposite. It is 100% forward-looking. It's your customer standing at the edge of a swimming pool asking themselves, how bad am I gonna feel if I jump in and that water is ice cold?
So where on earth does this incredibly powerful emotion come from? Well, it's not magic. It's a fundamental process hardwired into the human brain. You can think of it as being powered by your brain's own little what-if engine. Let's see how that works.
Okay, so the technical term for this is counterfactual thinking. It's just our brain's constant, non-stop habit of creating alternate realities. We don't just experience what happens, we are constantly simulating all the things that could have happened instead. It's the engine that's always churning out that feeling of what might have been. And the process is pretty straightforward. First, your customer considers a choice, let's say buying your product. Instantly, their brain jumps to imagining a potential negative outcome. What if it breaks? What if a better one comes out next week? And that one thought triggers a whole cascade of what-if scenarios. The emotional smoke that comes from that fire, that's anticipated regret. And this is where it gets really, really powerful. This isn't just some idle daydreaming. That thought process very quickly shifts from a curious what if to a painful if only. If only I had waited, or if only I had picked the other one. That if only, that is the very heart of regret. And your customer is feeling it before they've even spent a single cent. Okay, so this brings us to the absolute core insight of this whole thing. It turns out, not all choices create the same amount of anticipated regret. There's this fascinating psychological rule at play called the action-inaction principle. And honestly, the best way to get it is with a really simple but powerful example. So just imagine two scenarios. In scenario A, you take your normal, everyday route to work, the one you take every single day. And unfortunately, you get into an accident. Okay, now scenario B. Today, you decide to be a little adventurous, try a brand new route, and you get into the exact same type of accident. So think about it. The outcome is identical. The damage to your car is the same. But which one would make you feel worse? And which one would you be kicking yourself harder? For most people, the answer is instant. It's a gut feeling. And the answer, for almost everybody, is scenario B. And that is the punchline. A negative outcome that comes from taking a new action, from changing things up, it feels way, way worse than the exact same outcome that happens from inaction, from just sticking with the default.
And this isn't just about car accidents. Let's put this right into a business context. An investor who actively switches their mutual fund and then loses money is going to feel way more regret than an investor who did nothing, who took no action, and simply missed out on a potential gain. The pain of a bad action is so much stronger than the sting of a missed opportunity.
So why, right? Why does our brain punish us more for taking action than for doing nothing? Well, it all comes back to that what-if engine we were just talking about. There's a fundamental bias in how that thing operates.
The reason for this bias is actually pretty wild. When you take an action that goes wrong, like trying that new route, the alternative is painfully clear. If only I had just stuck to my usual route. It's one simple, easy thing to picture. But when you stick with the status quo and that goes wrong, what's the alternative then? Which of the other dozen routes should you have taken? It's much harder for your brain to create that specific if only, so the regret just doesn't hit as hard. So, what this all boils down to is this. For your customer, the status quo, which means not buying your product, it just feels safe. Taking the action to buy something new creates uncertainty, and it feels way more personal, more blameworthy if things go wrong. So, when they're faced with that decision, the path of least potential regret is very often to just do nothing. And that brings us full circle. This is the hidden barrier. It's not that they don't like your product. It's that their brain is literally hardwired to avoid the sharp sting of regret that comes from a bad action. So the safe choice, the choice that minimizes that dreaded feeling of anticipated regret, is very often to just maintain the status quo and not complete the purchase. So I want to leave you with this question to chew on. When you're looking at your whole sales process, are you just selling features and benefits? Or are you actively working to lower that fear of anticipated regret? Think about things like free trials, generous return policies, or just glowing social proof. These aren't just perks, they are regret reduction tools. Because at that final moment of decision, the real battle isn't about features. It's whether you've made their desire for your product stronger than their fear of regret.